Do you ever feel like you're drowning in content chaos, wondering if you should plan every single thing that you want to create and produce weeks in advance, or if you should just ride the wave of inspiration in real time?
You're not alone. The batch versus time debate is one of the most talked about and argued over, actually. Workflows out there, and today we're breaking it down with real stats, real creator insights, and a real time system that actually works.
So, whether you're managing one show or 10, solo or with a team, today's episode is going to help you stop guessing and start creating with flow. Let's get into it. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Behind the Workflow. My name is Simona Costantini.
And I'm Taly Melo.
And today we are here to talk to you all about batching your content, what to do, what not to do, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with you, Taly.
Yes, me too. I'm actually really pumped about this one because we're diving into one of the biggest workflow questions out there. Should you batch your content or create in real time?
I mean, I know my own personal answer is to just go with the flow, but it is not sustainable. And we're going to talk about why. And especially when it comes to managing your own podcast. So, whether you're managing your own podcast or if you're juggling a whole bunch of different client shows, I think that this overall debate actually hits really, really hard. So, do you want to start with why batching trains your brain and also trains your team?
Yes. So if you run your own content agency or even just your own show, context switching is the hidden productivity killer. Like basically, research is telling us that it can reduce efficiency by 40%.
This is absolutely wild to me because when you say the word context switching, that is what a lot of people will call multitasking, right? Oh,
Yes.
I'm so good at multitasking. I'm so great at multitasking. I love multitasking. I can do so many different things in 1 hour. And while that's really great, there was a study done through Asana that said that just recovering from external distractions can take you over 20 minutes to get back into alignment, to get
Yeah.
back into the flow of what you were already doing originally, which is, if you think about it, your whole entire morning gone. So if you think like Monday morning, you wake up, you're going to be so productive, you're going to do all the things, and then something comes into your awareness, right? Totally derails your whole entire day. And now it's going to take you even more time, even more energy to get back into the tasks that you were going to do. Not even to mention the mental burnout that comes with that, right? Because at this point, you can be like, oh my gosh, I'm already behind. I'm already behind. I'm already distracted. So I think it's really, really, really important to just to highlight. So what we kind of decided to do, because you and I have so much fun going through Reddit and reading people's posts and the things that they're struggling with and the challenges, like, getting insight from people. So, what we're doing in our episode today is pulling in some of those different Reddit responses from different creators on Reddit. And we're going to pull in some of the things that they've said, the challenges that they've had, and what we think about it.
Yes. And also, like, even solo creators on Reddit, they actually say that batching saves them 2 to 8 hours a month. So imagine the impact that it could do across, let's say, 5 different shows.
100%. And I will be the first one to tell you that I'm not great at batching content. And I try and be like, mindful of the words that I use. I'm not great at this or whatever. But it's kind of just a reality at the same time. I'm someone who likes to create more in flow. I get an idea, I get really inspired, and I want to create that specific thing in that specific moment. But that doesn't always work when you're launching product or you're in a product launch for a business or you're selling a course or a membership or you're launching a new podcast, right? Because when you do batch your content, it gives you clarity, it gives you consistency, it gives you repeatability, and it gives you just a baseline that you can fall back on, which is really crucial and really important to agencies and what they need in order to grow their impact, their digital footprint without losing their minds, right? Because I think to myself all the time, if we didn't have our podcast for Northflow, could you imagine all of the weeks like as we're building product, as we're bringing new users in, having content that's already batched, already created, already there saves us so much mental stress that
It
we can
does.
focus on other parts of the business.
And not just that too, but with the batching that we do. Like on the days that we're not sure what to post, we can always go back and grab a few things from there too, along with the stuff that happens basically in real time. Like we have things going on that we just want to jump in and share with the community. We always have like
Exactly.
that backlog of things that you can pull from.
Exactly. And we also like to share different gifts and funny things and all that. And sometimes, like hopping on different trends only happens when you are in the actual real time moment. So, this is why creating in real time still does matter.
Yes, but let's not sleep on real time creation, right? Because it brings that spark, like the fresh idea, trend reactions, the emotional energy, even, right?
Yeah, exactly. So going back to our like Reddit idea and like reading all the different Reddit things, one Redditor said that batching sounds dreamy, but I worry that my content won't feel fresh. What do you think about this?
That's valid, actually. Especially
Hmm.
like for us, real time shows, it shows up in reels and behind the
Hmm.
scenes posts or reaching to industry shifts. But
Hmm.
if you're only doing it in real time, burnout could actually, be just around the corner because you're always like, every day you're like, okay, I have to do this. I have to do this today. So you never have that mental freedom, or in a way like you don't have
Yes.
that mental,
It's like the
even like a
mental
mental
load.
break, like
Yes.
you don't have the time to just like, okay, what am I going to be working on next? You have to be like, okay, this is what I have to post about what we just launched, or like let's say you're doing this for a client, you have to be doing this like 5, 10, 20 times, depending on how many
Hmm.
clients you have, and you're trying to help them spark what they're going to be posting. But if you're always doing like the batching, you have, like I mentioned before, you have that backlog of things you could go to, but the real time can still happen. But it's more like organic. You don't have that pressure of having to create that content.
1000%. I think that is so, so, so good. And when we think about batching and how people are like, oh my gosh, it'd be so nice to be months and months and months and weeks ahead, it's great to have that. But then you miss out on like like we were saying, like the real time
Yeah.
things, and it could feel a little static. But
Hmm.
I would also argue that in some ways you kind of need that content that is static, right? Like you need those posts that are more educational in style, that are more in alignment with a podcast episode that you've created. Those ones are a little bit more just like plug and play type of thing, like we're saying. And so sometimes I wonder, because I think this about myself often. Sometimes I'm like, oh, if I batch too much content in advance, it's going to be too rigid.
Yeah.
And then I won't have time to actually have fun on social media. And I think there's a big thing on social media just because there's so much noise, right? Even in podcasting, there's so much noise. On YouTube, there's so much noise that it's like if you're going to take the time to create the content, you want it to be something that actually brings you joy and like sparks a funny moment or like whatever the thing is, right? So
Yeah.
maybe for some people, it's like if I batch too much in advance, because I'm kind of like this, like if I batch too much in advance, now I'm so disconnected from what I'm doing because it's running so much on autopilot that I'm not actually in the creation mode. But I think that there's also seasons for each of those. What do you think?
Yes. I like the seasons part, but I'm wondering though too, like just to play, I guess, devil's advocate on this one, and thinking like from a guest point of view, right? I recorded a podcast. I think it was back like in February, and it didn't come out until May. And I was so curious. I was so impatient. So I'm wondering, like you said, the seasons part. Is there like a shorter term where you, instead of just like recording for like the next 6 months, you record maybe a month or 6 weeks ahead, right? This way, that impatient part from you, even, or the client, or the person that's the guest on that show, they don't have to even
Mhm.
feel that because 6 weeks goes by really fast. But it still gives you that time to be able to plan the next set.
I meet podcasters all the time, creators all the time, agency owners all the time, where they're batching content out like literally 6 to 8 months in advance. And like,
Yeah.
what if the thing that you recorded today literally is not even relevant at that point anymore, right? So
That's
there's
a
like
lot.
that balance, right, between having your content out on a reasonable time, but then also batching so you can stay ahead and not in creator overwhelm. So they kind of blend both together.
Yeah. And I think that's the sweet spot right there. Like you have the structure and you have the space to experiment. Yes. So going back to talking about like what creators and agency owners are saying on Reddit.
Perfect. Yeah. We pulled some real Reddit questions directly off of there that reflect both the agency life and also solo creator struggles. Do you want to share agency creator first?
Sure, yeah. So one agency creator said, I spend 5 through 7 hours a week on my own brand, batching similar tasks to help stay focused.
I like this. Batching similar tasks to help you stay focused, I think is really important. If someone has 5 to 7 hours a week to work on their own brand, now, I mean, of course, this depends on like what the agency is, how
Mhm.
many clients they have, what are they doing, what is the work, right? But that's a really, really good amount of time. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, you must have a decent system and a decent strategy in order to be able to find 5 to 7 hours a week to work on your own brand. But I love the idea of batching those similar tasks to stay focused because I'm someone who I like to have different things and like variation all day
Mhm.
long. You know what I mean? Like I don't always want to do the same thing. So it does kind of think like, I don't know, a little bit of discipline, I guess. What do you think?
I like that. Do you think like when she says batching similar tasks, she's talking about like if she's working on blog posts, for
Yeah.
example, like she's taking the last 3 episodes that she did and she's just doing blog posts for those. I think
Yeah.
that's what she meant by that.
I do. I think that it's like grouping all of the things that are similar that take like similar brain capacity together. That's what I think. Okay. The next person asked, should I batch before I even know what works? And then someone replied to that saying, upload a few episodes, test first, then batch what sticks. What are your thoughts?
Hmm. I feel like that's you're doing like A, B, and C testing, basically. Like we're sending out a newsletter. We're usually doing different tests with like the subject line to see what kind of gets open more often. And that could be even like a mindset shift, because you're not just batching all of, like you said, like 6 months ahead. You're doing a shorter period and testing. It's not like locking yourself into a rigid system either. It's about building repeatable steps after you figure out what works. You don't have to batch from day one. You can actually start messy, start short, and then test a few things and then build your system around it and make sure you're building a system that wins, right? That works for you and for your team as well.
1000%. Because if you batch everything before you even know what actually is going to work for you, you may have wasted so much time because the content that you create, the podcast episode that you create, the whole seasons of stuff that you do genuinely may not resonate with people. And then you've wasted all
Mm.
that time. So, kind of what this person had replied and said, upload a few episodes. And that kind of goes the same thing. Create a few social media posts, tease the X, Y, and Z thing, test that first, and then you'll see what people like, what people resonate with, what performs the best, and then you can go and you can create and batch more of that.
I'm just thinking back a few weeks ago when Mark Moron came out saying that he was going to end his podcast and all of that. All of
Mhm.
a sudden, a bunch of people started talking about it on their different shows. And I was like, well, if they had all of this content locked down, they wouldn't have the opportunity to be fluid and actually talk about things that's relevant. So, yes, batch, but also leave space open that you can include things like that that's happening at the moment.
I think it's a really, really good point. Have space to have the structure, have space to experiment and add in additional things that may not be on your structured list, because then you have space to create even more things. So, this brings us to our 3P framework, which is plan, produce, and pivot. So, when you're running a team or when you're producing multiple shows, you really need a system that is going to work for you. I see it day in and day out. If you don't have a system and a structure, if
Yeah.
everything is chaotic, if things are in 100 different places, you have lost the creation game. So, this is why we have built our 3P workflow: plan, produce, and then pivot.
Yeah, and let's break it down. So the P stands for plan, right? And basically, the purpose for that is like you're planning, it gives you the creativity, a container, the steps that actually helps you zoom out and build your rhythm. Like some of the questions that you can ask during this time that you're planning, like what kind of content do you regularly publish? How often
Mhm.
do you want to publish, right? And then you
Mhm.
can even think of like what is your 3 to 5 like pillars or themes that you or your client talk about. So you can do this for yourself, for your own content, but also as you're guiding your clients on what they could be doing as they're planning. And then the second one, which is P for produce, would be like, what are the steps to get the content out the door? Like producing in layers could help you maybe delegate some of the work. Also, it could avoid the burnout. It could help you track the progress a little clearly. And then some of the questions on that would be like, what's your production process right now? Are you like you're creating an outline, recording, and then editing, creating clips, writing captions, and scheduling? Or what else? Like, how is your client doing this? And what part are you included into it? Can you maybe be included a little sooner so you can help them with the whole part? Producing, like, would you be able to maybe get yourself ready for what's coming because you know what's happening, because you were part of the planning as well? And also, like, what are some of the tools that you use during production? What slows you down or cause you to stop even? And did you batch the content? And if so, how often? And so on. Then takes us to the last one, which is pivot, right? Where do you leave space for creativity to spark and create like those real moments? When you open your Instagram and you go and create a story, and pivoting prevents the burnout and actually keeps your voice current and alive. And one thing with this too, like a couple of the questions that you can ask, like what type of content do you post on impulse or in the moment? Where does your best ideas usually come from? Is it like from
Mhm.
conversations that you have on the day to day? Maybe like you're taking a shower and you just like thinking about things, like you're just like those shower thoughts, or is it like on Reddit,
Mhm.
a newsletter, YouTube? And how do you capture those ideas that hit you? Like, do you just send yourself a text message? I do that all the time. Even like on WhatsApp, it has the voice thing. I like to use that sometimes because then it helps me just talk without like having to actually stop what I'm doing. So that could be something too. And then, like, what percentage of your content do you want to leave unscheduled? I think that's important too, like, for you to
Mm.
plan ahead as you're doing the pivoting part. So it's plan, produce, and pivot.
And these are such good pillars. And we actually use Northflow to map all of this out because each stage that we have becomes a workflow. And then we can take that workflow and we can assign it to someone. We
Yes.
can tweak parts of the workflow. We can tweak what's inside each card within the workflow. And then we can reuse it
Mhm.
over and over and over again. The idea is that everything that you do needs to be simple so that you actually do it, right? If it's not, you're not going to do it. And I just think that that's really important. But it's also important for solo creators as well, not just agency owners, right?
Yes, and we want another piece to Northflow as well is the production schedule that we have with the
Mhm.
Northflow. And I've seen people doing it breaking by seasons, even like different categories, but it just helps you have that visual of like what's coming, and then also giving you the ability to leave that piece of where you're going to be creative and creating the stuff that you're going to post on your social media that happens in the moment and are more like laid back and not very structured. It gives us clarity for agencies. It's the difference between managing 3 shows and scaling to 10 without the chaos.
I love that. I completely agree. So let's leave everyone with a couple of pro tips from
Yeah.
each of the worlds, the batching world and then the real time world.
Yes. So batching tips here. And feel free to jump in, Simona. I'm just going to share a
Sure.
couple. All right. So, block focused batch days. No meetings, no Slack. Just turn on Do Not Disturb and go for it. Also, you can use task templates and automation whenever you can. Keep visible pipeline across clients. So, you could do it in Cabin, boards, status tags, whatever way
Mhm.
works best for you. And then we also have real time tips, which is keep a pivot idea board for trends, news, spontaneous reels, and then
Great
use.
idea. That is a great idea. Because
Yes.
then you can copy and paste links of different trends that you like and paste them somewhere, and then you can always go back to them and have them for the future.
Yes. And then you can use voice memos or drop thoughts straight into a Northflow tasks. We have comments there and different tasks that you can add as many bullet points or just like thoughts that you want on it. And then launch imperfectly. Done is better than dusty. Really, like done is better than perfect, right?
It really, really, really is. And I guess maybe just to sum all of this up as well, one Redditor said it really, really well. Upload, learn, iterate,
Mhm.
and don't overthink the first few. You really can't. Like, you just have to start because you want to get into that place of consistency
Yes.
without having burnout, right? So, this question also came up a lot. So, how do you stay consistent without burning out? And it can be hard sometimes because you have reality, right? Versus the system that you want to be working for you. But then life happens, you know? So, what is the way? How? Taly, tell us the way.
Systems. Can I say it again? Systems.
Say it louder for those in the back, systems.
Systems. You need a container for your creativity, like that's where the 3 Ps framework actually shines because
Mhm.
batching, it gives you structure, pivoting keeps it fresh. So,
I love that. Also, too, when everything is all laid out in one place, your energy goes towards content and it does not go towards chaos. We will share with you that whether you are running a solo podcast or if you're running a full agency or a network, the magic in this here is really finding the rhythm that is going to work best
mhm.
for you.
Yes. So, what we're going to do, we packaged our 3P content workflow as a free download, and it's a complete with fill in prompts and then also like a planning board. And it plays for those last minute ideas as well, of course.
I love that. So you can grab the link to that in the episode notes below, or just send us a DM on Instagram and we'll send it over to you, or even reply to one of our emails that we send out because we have our newsletter as well.
All right. And if this episode helped you in any way, shape, or form, you can share it with a friend, a fellow podcast manager, podcast owner, just another creator out there. Your next strategy session will say thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our episode today, and we will see you next week behind the workflow.